بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Whenever a beloved person passes away, it is always a very daunting task to think about the process that we immediately have to follow in order to pray the funeral prayer and also to arrange the burial. It can be very stressful. Sometimes family members are in different parts of the world. Of course, they may not have been expecting the loss and the death of a loved one, and so they're not mentally prepared to deal with what is to follow. In Islam, as we know, it's recommended to hasten with the funeral prayer and also the burial, but we are often caught off guard by a sudden death of a family member. That is the case in most situations, unless somebody is suffering from a terminal illness, in which case family members will often make arrangements beforehand so that when the person passes away, then they are able to follow through the funeral and the burial in a very orderly and smooth fashion. But nonetheless, it is important to think about what are the processes and what are the procedures that one has to follow to arrange a burial in Islam. Firstly, there's certain paperwork that must be obtained. The death certificate and the burial certificate must be obtained, and there must also be a confirmation of a proof of a burial plot in order for the body to then move forward in the process towards the burial itself. Then, of course, once the family have the body released from the hospital, then they will proceed with the ghusl, the bathing of the body, the shrouding of the body, meaning the coffin will be placed on the male or the female, and then they will be presented and prepared in the best way before the actual burial itself. They will be placed in a coffin of naturally an appropriate size, and then preparations will be made for the funeral prayer. When the funeral prayer time and place has been finalized, then the body will be transported from wherever it is being stored. Sometimes it's in a morgue, sometimes it's in a freezer facility for bodies. Then it will be moved from there to the masjid or wherever the funeral is taking place, and then thereafter, once the funeral has concluded, the body will be transported to the place of burial. Once it is at the place of burial, what is customary in the Islamic tradition is that the male attendees and family members, they will pick up the coffin from the hearse and carry it to the actual burial plot itself. When they get there, they will often have somebody in charge of arranging and organizing the burial who will then direct them as to what steps they need to take to ensure that the coffin is lowered into the grave in a very orderly and appropriate manner, whilst then the other family members and the attendees, once the body has been lowered, they will often place the mud into the grave to fill up the grave. It is a nice gesture, and it's something that many family members like to do, that they prefer to fill the grave with shovels through manual labor, because it's a more personal touch. However, it is also very common that after the initial part of the grave has been filled, for then a digger to complete the process and to completely fill the grave. Once that has been done, then the grave will be heaped a little bit, and the family members will recite some verses of the Quran Sharif, and they will also place flowers on the grave, and then they will make dua, supplication for the deceased, and then that will conclude the process of the burial. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ.